Jack Davenport in the house. Jack!
Good morning, everybody. How are you?
I mean, firstly, can we just address how good your radio voice is?
Yes, normally I sound like a mouse that's swallowed helium, but I'm doing a special voice for today.
It's just glorious. Thank you very much. Talk to me about this play. What's the whole situation with the tickets?
The Donmar warehouse is quite a small theatre, and they've got a very committed subscriber base, and so they tend to hoover up a lot of the tickets to begin with. But even with shows that say on the website, as ours does, that it's sold out, they do hold back a few tickets every week. So if you kind of return and kind of keep pestering them, you will get a seat. So there will be seats, just maybe not today.
So it's a case of shy bands getting out, Jack. You
That's
just
right.
have to keep going.
That's exactly right. You took the words right out of my mouth.
So talk to me about this play. You're starring, it's a play about the NHS, the founding of the NHS. Tell me a little bit more about it.
Yes, it's a new play written by an extraordinary playwright called Lucy Kirkwood, who's written lots. She just did The Witches at the National Theatre. She's very ridiculously talented. And it's myself and the wonderful Keely Hawes, who everybody loves, including me. And it is based around the period where the NHS was first founded, which is 1948. And that's the sort of background of the play. And in the foreground is a very sweeping, romantic, doomed love story. Lucy wanted to write the play, I think, primarily because I think this year's the 75th anniversary of the NHS, I think. And given, that it's a bit like a sort of punched out boxer at the moment, the poor NHS, she wanted to honour that moment. And it's kind of an extraordinary political moment, pushing through anything where, everybody in society gets the help they need for no cost. Like there's always resistance to that sort of thing. And it is a kind of fascinating period in British history. It was right after the war. Weirdly, doctors didn't want the NHS to happen. And so that's the kind of political background. And in the foreground, as I say, there's myself and Keely. Keely plays a doctor who is also trying to become an MP. And I play an actor who's been living in America for a very long time, demonstrating my extraordinary lack of range. And we meet and romance ensues.
I love that. Is there a sort of like a political parallel between sort of like what is happening now in the NHS and what was happening then? Do you think you can draw on that?
I mean, I think, look, it's enormous social programs that cost a lot of money. Different political parties have different attitudes towards these things. Some like to help those that don't have, and some are only interested in those that have. I will leave the listeners to decide which ones I might be referring to there. And that was very much the case back then. Surprise, surprise.
So yes.
And Nye Bevan, who was a Labour Party politician and was almost solely responsible for jamming it all through back in 1948. You only actually really have to look at like when Obama was president in America and pushing through Obamacare. It's like, for some reason, people don't like the idea of poor people getting help. It's weird, isn't it?
Weird.
And so it's, a lot of political capital, I think, has to be spent trying to get those things through. So, there are, what do they say? History doesn't repeat itself, but I can't remember well, let's say it repeats itself. To a degree it does. There's a better quote, which I can't remember, but there you go.
But I love the fact that it's you and Keely Hawes. I mean, Keely is one of my favourite actors that is
She's
in this
fantastic.
country. I mean, she's amazing. What's it like playing opposite her?
It's like working with a high performance sports car. She's wonderful, and I've admired her stuff for years and years and years. And she was involved before I came on board, and it was a big part of the attraction. I mean, the play itself is a beautiful play, I have to say, but she hasn't done a play for a minute, and neither have I, to be honest. But doing a play is much scarier than TV or film, because obviously for obvious reasons. And so you sort of want to go into battle with someone that you know will
got your back.
Yeah, and she would. That's definitely the case. So no, it's been a delight.
And it's the Donmar as well. I mean, this is where, a lot of your big players, a lot of you big movie stars go, you're in there, and it's sort of like, there's always like massive attraction for being in that theatre, I suppose, as an actor.
It is. It's the only theatre in London that I haven't worked in that I still, apart from the National, that I wanted to work in. And it's partly because of the quality of the work that's done there, mainly, but it's also an amazing space because it's really quite small. Like the stage is bigger than the auditorium, which is quite unusual, and so you can have an intimacy to what you're doing, which is quite unusual. And sometimes, guess what, less is more, and having less people and a more intimate experiences makes it much. I mean, that's the thing about theatre, isn't it? It's like it's about a shared experience in that moment, and if you're only 15 feet from what's happening, that's a bit more electric, I think. So yeah, it's exciting.
I mean, it sounds absolutely amazing. So that's Jack's brand new play, The Human Body. There are no tickets, but there are tickets if you just keep pestering the Donmar at donmarwarehouse.com, you might be lucky enough to see this extraordinary performance of these two massive acting heavyweights at the Donmar. Just talking about how pure 90s that was, isn't it?
Very much so. It took me right back.
Did it?
Yes, some of my bad old days, all good old days.
What were you like in the 90s? What were they like for you? Because they were quite hedonistic for a lot of us,
They were
Jack.
a bit of a blur. I mean, that's a terrible pun, but well, I mean, I was in my early 20s, and it felt like a lot was happening then, and all that music from that period. That's my period.
Well, it's This Life, isn't it? That's your first big TV job. That's around that time, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was my first big TV job, and I mean, I was only 22 when it started, and it was like 1995, so the whole like Blur Oasis thing was happening, and the sort of Radiohead's Pomp.
That's when I started on the telly as well, 95.
Right, there you go, you see. Look, we're peas in a pod.
We're like two
and here we are at
peas
the
in-
top of a tower
It's
on the
mad.
radio now.
It's completely
It
crazy.
was meant to be, Jane.
It is completely meant to be. But so tell me about that time. I mean, that was sort of like in the 90s, that music was so massive for us all, wasn't it?
It was massive. And also, and this is going to make me sound like such a middle-aged man, but it also, one of the things that people forget about, there was no internet.
That's it.
And so culture was more. I mean, I used to read Q and all those magazines, and sort of like that was the sort of glue that bonded like youth culture together. And I went to the HMV shop every week and got and it was all a lot more tactile and kind of, and somehow. I mean, I look at my own son now, and it's like, every record ever produced in history is on his phone. Yeah. And it's just not quite the same. And I, like a sad old man, I got him a turntable, and I buy him vinyl. Yeah. Clearly, it's for myself, hoping that he'll kind of.
Come round.
I think it's just different, isn't it?
What was it like? Because 22, that's massive to sort of give you a big break. What was that like? Becoming that famous at that time?
A bit like being shot out of a cannon. I don't think any of us really expected it. We didn't really realise that was happening until there's a moment when, if you're in a show which really hits, you just start getting invited to stuff randomly. And I remember the first time we were all like, wait, what's happening? We all got invited to Elton John's birthday party. And we were like, what? Of course, we all went.
Yes.
And then we got invited to a party at Richard Branson's house. It was very strange. Yeah. And you sort of realise, and also...
Who's had the better party, Elton or Branson?
I think Elton. Yeah, I think if I had to call it. Unsurprisingly, maybe. They're both pretty good. And then things like, like it was the early days of... hateful media watering holes like the Groucho and Soho House, and so kind of getting into them was sort of, and not being a member was like a whole thing. So it was a lot of blurry activity in Soho mainly, I think.
I'm with you. We probably went the same places at the same time,
same
Jack.
rooms at many times.
I have got a question from Stephen Newcastle. He says, Jane, could you please ask Jack if there's any truth to the rumours of a special coupling reunion? It's one of his favourite TV shows.
Wow. I'm not sure sure there's that much truth to that rumour.
Jack.
Stephen Moffat, the esteemed writer of Coupling, is a production machine at this point. I mean, maybe I wouldn't say no. We had a very nice time doing that. I can neither confirm nor deny.
I love that. I'm loving that. I've sort of caught you on the ropes there, Jack.
A little bit, yes.
I love it. I want to talk to you, right? One of my favourite bands in the entire world is Snow Patrol.
Great band.
So yesterday I was watching you in a Snow Patrol video playing my favourite lead singer of all time, Gary Lightbody. Talk to me about what that experience was like.
It was great. I mean, it all starts with a rather nauseating Hollywood story, which is that I was at a party in LA and he was too.
You're so showbiz.
It's so terrible, isn't it? And we had a mutual friend,
Yeah.
and we just got chatting, and I was talking to him about the fact that most actors wish they were rock stars, because what rock stars can do in a chord change. We sweat for 3 hours and we might get a kind of out of people, and they get 20,000 people go bananas when they just go from D minor to, well, I don't know the chords, but anyway. And we were sort of joking about it, and then 2 days later he called me and he went, I was really thinking about what you were saying. Do you want to be in a video? And I was like, yeah, all right. And initially there was a moment where I think it all slightly nearly fell apart, because I got called for a rehearsal at a dance studio in the Valley in LA, and I turned up and there was all these like dancers and a choreographer, and they're like, well, we'll show you the routine. And I was like, okay, I'm not doing that. I mean, I can't do that. Maybe this is a bust. And I was like, I'd had more of a vision of like Robert Palmer, like standing with a microphone jigging about a bit. And it was all got a bit strained. And then Gary was like, no, yeah, just let Jack do what he wants to do. And anyway, so then that difficult moment passed. And then a few days later, we were in a studio somewhere and we spent a day doing it. And I was very moved, really, by Gary's willingness to kind of send himself up.
Yes, he really did in that video.
Yeah, he does. It's a funny video where he is the butt of the joke.
Yes, he is.
And also in terms of their sound, it was like a real departure, that track, and and they've continued to do that over the years. It's like they're not a band that stands still, and so it was really. And he's a very kind of humble, sweet guy. He's not rock starry at all. So it was lovely, and to this day, I mean, not many people ask me about that, but. I was in a Snow Patrol video, and like, how about that?
You really proper pulled it off as well, and you can see when I was watching it, Robert Palmer all over.
That's pretty much.
That's what you were channeling,
those
right?
are the only moves I've got, really. Stick me in a suit and let me just kind of weave about a bit.
Jack, it has been absolutely lovely having you in on the Breakfast Show. Good luck with the play at the Donmar. It is called.
It is called The Human Body by Lucy Kirkwood. Starts on Friday until the middle of April, and there will be tickets, I promise.
Just keep going to the website. You'll
That's
find them.
right.
Thank you so much, Jack.